I'm delighted to be joined by Bill Browder here at this year's Chalk Valley History Festival. Bill is, of course, the author of The Freezing Order and has come back again, having been at the festival last year. Bill, I want to start by asking, how has the situation changed in Russia since the invasion of Ukraine?
It's changed completely. I think that Russia was in a, actually Putin was in a steady state before that, and he took a big risk, and his risk blew up in his face. The war in Ukraine has killed 230,000 Russian soldiers. It depleted and destroyed a big part of the infrastructure of the Russian military, hollowed out the Russian economy, created a huge number of Russian brain drain, refugees leaving the country. Of course, totally destroyed big parts of Ukraine, killed many Ukrainians. Just a disaster in every possible way for Russia and for Ukraine.
And of course, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Prigozhin mutiny, the failed mutiny. I was going to ask, was it always destined to fail? Was there any possibility that it could have actually been successful?
Well, I think that he's pushed open a door which Putin has wanted to keep shut for the last 23 years. And what the door is Putin's vulnerability. What it shows is that Putin isn't this beloved strong man. They were people taking selfies and cheering the Wagner troops as they rode into Rostov and Voronezh, and that image is an image that you can't erase, and that leaves open all sorts of risk for Putin.
And of course, Wagner was such an important part of his forces. I mean, how are the Russians going to conduct the war now when they've lost such an important part of their force? Well,
Wagner was the one force that the Ukrainians felt was really capable, and now they've been eradicated, and I think that puts the Russians in a much weaker position on the front lines.
And how are the Ukrainians going to capitalise on this situation? Do you think that actually gives them, are they in the ascendancy now with this? Will this actually change anything, or is it a bit of a flash in the pan?
I think the Ukrainians have had a sort of a gradual building up of an advantage from the equipment and the motivation and the organization of their military. The fact that Wagner is disappearing, the fact that now the Russians need to reinforce inside of Russia to prevent future rebellions means that more equipment is going to be taken away from the front lines. And most importantly, every gain that Ukraine makes creates more infighting in Russia, which is helpful for the Ukrainian cause.
And do you think NATO should be supplying more weapons? I mean, obviously we have had kind of moves with tanks coming in, potentially coming forward. Do you think we need to send aircraft and further tanks in?
The Ukrainians should get everything they ask for. They should get F-16s, they should get long-range missiles, they should get more tanks, more artillery, more everything. It's a question, do we want to be fighting the Russians, or do we want the Ukrainians to fight the Russians? The Ukrainians are spilling blood for not just for themselves, but for us.
And as a final question, it's such an interesting topic and deserves to be better well known. Is there going to be a documentary about what you found out about kind of Putin and everything about Magnitsky and the Magnitsky Act?
I imagine there'll be a documentary, maybe multiple documentaries.
That's fantastic. Bill Browder, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.